Hey everyone, it is Evan here from the Trade Risk on Wednesday, June 13th. We're intraday right now, and we're going to walk through a few different trade ideas, some trade setups, some names that I'm paying attention to that you guys may find interesting. Every Wednesday we do these short trade setup videos, and hopefully you find some names that fit your interest, fit your trading strategy. As a reminder here, we are intraday. The Fed we just had the FOMC minutes released. We got confirmation that the Fed funds rate's going up 1/4%, and we did see a bit of a reaction to the downside. Nothing major at this point, but you can see here, like on the Qs, for example, we did get, or we are getting so far, a kind of thrust off of the intraday highs here, and we'll have to pay attention to how this market closes. As a reminder, you know, none of the setups, I'm always presenting long setups. I do trade individual stocks to the long side. I do not short individual stocks personally. Therefore, you will not see short setups from my list here. I always go for, say, the inverse to the Qs, or I will short the S&P 500. I will short financials. That's generally speaking where my short exposure comes from. So, for instance, right now, if we did get some type of high volume reversal, if the Qs perhaps did continue to sink lower into the close, volume picked up, that perhaps may be a setup for me on the short side to jump into some of the inverse Qs for a tactical trade. That's not something I have on at this time, but something that I would pay attention to. So generally speaking, that is how I get my short exposure. So just keep that in mind. And with these names on the long side, these are names that are holding up pretty well right now. Again, do your homework, do your due diligence. Don't rush out and buy any of these just because they're listed. So first things first, we got three names I'm going to be talking about, three names coming from our partners over at Investors Business Daily. The first one, I did put this one out on the stream yesterday, but it's LSXMA. So here we are, a stock that is holding up well, basing right over a longer term breakout from earlier in May. So for instance, if we looked at this major trend line here, horizontal resistance, or we could do some type of trend line like this extending from the August 2017 highs, we can see here that this stock was basing out for, about a year and a half or so, and it did break out in May, and now it's getting real tight in here just over this prior resistance. So if we go to a weekly chart, I think this shows the picture here, holding above 45.30, 45.50 or so, right at the highs here, the ultimate highs here from August is where we are flagging out now. Price is getting tight in here. So this is a name that I'd be paying attention to. A trigger even above today's highs over 46.50, 46.60 or so on volume. Look at the volume that you see coming in recently. That would be an interesting name to pay attention to. Next up is CGC. So here's one. If we zoom out just a little bit, we'll start with a weekly chart just because this shows the bigger picture here. You can see the trend is moving up and to the right, and we are getting a nice move back to these recent highs here. The all-time highs were made back in 2017, but you can see here on a closing basis, we are getting, we are flirting with weekly closing highs. And if we go down to a daily chart, notice the volume that is coming in here over the past few weeks of trading. We saw volume dry up throughout this base, throughout this consolidation period, and now we're seeing it really accelerate here as we start to climb north of $30. So generally speaking, the pattern's still a little bit loose here, but I just like the general structure of this holding up. Volume starting to come in. It's acting pretty resilient right now, and it's a name that I think is worth paying attention to. So that's CGC right there. TMO, finally, I think this is one that I talked about, or I posted on the stream here yesterday as well. Thermo Fisher, we look at that weekly chart. Take a look at how tight this is getting. It's been consolidating all year, and you can see just how much overlapping price action has sort of coiled up here over the past 6 months of trading. So I'd be paying attention to this 220 level. If we can get a breakout on volume there to continue in this long-term uptrend, that would be interesting. But if you are a short seller of individual stocks and you want to watch this pattern for a potential reversal, then watch the bottom end of support here. If we do continue to fail up here around 220 and then we start breaking down below this trend line around 210, you may have an interesting kind of topping pattern to play off of. So Thermo Fisher, I think, can go either way. I like it on the long side just because the dominant trend is there, but I think you can can watch it and play it in both respects. So those are the three I'm paying attention to. Three more that I'm watching here. These come from IBD's lists. You can find the links to the description if you want to get access to these lists. The first is ANET, A-N-E-T. So this one here just acting pretty resilient and climbing here north of, and just really sort of outperforming the market recently. And again, the pattern here is a little bit loose. There may not be something super immediate to buy or to get involved with, but it's again something to pay attention to, something to add to your watch list. Maybe a few more days, maybe 2 weeks down the road, this sets up nicely. But for now, it's holding above this, say, longer term $245 support level that has been in place since back in late 2017, and it recently just broke out above this trend line here around $262 or so back a few weeks ago. So I like ANET here, the prospects of potentially getting back to the upper end of this range. I don't see an immediate pattern right now, but something I am paying attention to. Next up is GRUB. I think GRUB has been on my list here for the past several weeks. It's been acting well, and here it is, a sneaky move to all-time highs here. It's been acting well. We've featured this in the past. We did get a trade ourselves in this to the long side for a small gain. I think we bought it in here on this breakout day. We ended up taking some profits at the highs here. Luckily, at the highs here back on Tuesday, and then I think we got stopped out just a day or two later. So did get a small gain in there. Never got the re-entry, and here it is again back at highs. If we look at a weekly chart here, you can see really starting to accelerate this week, 10% to the upside, clearing above all prior overhead resistance, and we do have earnings out of the way. So GRUB, something that continues to perform, and I think looks interesting there on the long side. And finally, Planet Fitness. So here's on a daily chart right now, what we can see is we got this tight kind of flag going on, got some higher lows building, got this flat resistance right around $44. $44.10 or so, but it's had this nice move over the past week or so from 38 to new highs. Now it's flagging out something I think is a little bit more of a chase, a little bit more of a momentum play here, but if you're short-term tactical, you're looking for a little bit of a squeeze, some continued momentum, Planet Fitness is acting quite well, and I think it's worth paying attention to. So that's it, 6 names all on the long side there. Do your homework, do your due diligence, don't rush out and buy anything. If you like these names, if you want to hear more about Investors Business Daily, what they're offering, what their lists entail, check out the link in the description of this YouTube video. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like these videos, and I will be back on Friday for a weekend market recap video. Take care.